Another important point are the capsules of the thyroid gland. We know that it has a true capsule and a false capsule. The true capsule is basically condensation of the thyroid tissue itself. The false capsule is the derivative of the deep cervical fascia, and it plays a very vital role, especially in management and in explanation as to how the patient is going to have a retrosternal goiter. Alright. For that, we need to understand what are the attachments of the false capsule of the thyroid gland. So now let's look at a sagittal section. So if this is the thyroid gland, we're looking at it from the side. This is where you're going to have the cricoid and the larynx, which comes down like this, the tracheal ring. If this is the clavicle, okay, we'll just label it so that we don't get confused. This is the thyroid, this will be your larynx, and this will be a clavicle. And we know that anything beneath the clavicle is the thorax. Okay, this is the thoracic inlet. So it goes down into the chest. The thyroid gland is situated here. Alright. Now this is covered by the the false capsule, which is a derivative of the deep cervical fascia. Now what you need to understand is it has two laminas. Alright, it has an anterior layer and a posterior layer. So it covers the anterior layer of the thyroid and even the posterior layer of the thyroid. Now superiorly, this gets attached to the oblique line. The oblique line on the thyroid cartilage. Okay, and you have to understand this deep cervical fascia is a very dense tissue. Alright, it will not allow the thyroid gland to enlarge above this level. That's the reason we say that if you see any swelling which is above the level of the thyroid cartilage, it is unlikely to be the thyroid gland. Even in carcinoma of thyroid, it is very difficult for this carcinoma to penetrate and go beyond the deep cervical fascia or beyond the false capsule. Now, the interesting part comes to what happens to these two layers posteriorly. So we know that superiorly both these layers fuse. Inferiorly, the anterior lamina gets inserted onto the clavicle. Now this is where it becomes surprising. Whereas the posterior layer goes down into the thorax and it becomes a part of the adventitia of the great vessels. Alright. So it becomes a part of the adventitia. So now what has happened? You have a big opening here where the thyroid gland can grow inferiorly. Okay. So this is the reason why a patient has retrosternal goiter. So the reasons for a retrosternal goiter is, the first one is absence of the capsule inferiorly. Alright, inferiorly there is absence of the capsule. The second reason will be the negative pressure of the thorax. So commonly you guys tend to say negative pressure as your first point. Okay, the answer is actually the absence of the false capsule inferiorly.